Sony has some massive hits under its belt, but how much of these games actually sold? Well, that's what we're breaking down in today's video. Hello there everyone, it's Aaron here from Push Square, and yeah, I've been thinking about some of the best-selling franchises in PlayStation's history, and today I'm going to be focusing on the PS4 and 5 era. If you'd like to see some of the older generation sales covered, then let me know down in the comments and we can do that in another video. So just a very quick bit of housekeeping, I'm not going to be covering any of the information from the Insomniac leaks. We here at Push Square decided not to cover it in any extent, because we find it to be a malicious and illegal hack at the end of the day. Not that we're making any particular statement on anyone that did cover the game, we're just deciding not to do that ourselves. So today we are looking at the officially announced sales figures of some of the biggest PlayStation games, so let's get into it. I want to start off with one that was quite a surprise that caught my eye, and that was Detroit Become Human, a 2018 PlayStation 4 exclusive from Quantic Dreams, which followed up the PS3 classic Heavy Rain. This has sold over 9 million units as of just last year. Now, of course, these sales are across both PlayStation 4 and PC. The game launched on PC a year after the PlayStation launch. It launched on PS4 to 1 million sales within its launch window. A similar situation with the PC launch as well, and it's just gradually been ticking away in the background. To be honest, this one just kind of surprised me because I sort of forgot that it existed. It's an alright game, I didn't think it was that bad, but not really quite the level of Quantic Dream that we loved from Heavy Rain, which had this kind of weird air to it. But yeah, 9 million sales. Congrats to them, I suppose. Moving on, we've got Ghost of Tsushima, which as of June of 2022 had sold 9.73 million units. Now, of course, that's going to have grown somewhat since then. We had the Director's Cut launch on PS5. I think this week, like literally the week I'm recording this and releasing this video, we're getting the PC launch as well. So yeah, we can expect to see this to grow some more across the years. Also, I think the future of this franchise is pretty bright because we not only have potentially a sequel coming out, we're assuming we're going to get that announcement this year. We also have a movie in the works with Chad Stahelski. Potentially we'll see what happened with The Last of Us and Fallout, where new audiences from different mediums are coming across to the games after being introduced to that world and that story and those characters. Hopefully that's the case with Ghost of Tsushima, but yeah, very solid start for this new IP. Speaking of new IPs though, Helldivers 2 has just blown all expectations out of the water. Literally about 5 minutes before I recorded this, we had the announcement that it has become the fastest selling PlayStation launch ever, with 12 million units sold in 12 weeks. Now that does include PC sales, so it's PC and PS5, but we do know that this game is a pretty big success on both platforms. There's been some controversy since regarding the PSN linking. It obviously doesn't change much for us here on console, but yeah, I don't think anyone really expected this game to be as big as it is. It's just been such an insane success. I wouldn't even say that this necessarily guarantees that if there was a Helldivers 3, it would sell as well. This almost feels like a lightning in the bottle sort of situation. But I mean, I loved the game. I reviewed it for the site and the channel. I gave it like a 9 out of 10. I absolutely loved this game. And yeah, I'm so glad to see something that is live service that doesn't come across as too greedy as well. It seems to treat its players with a fair amount of respect. I'm glad to see that it's being rewarded for crafting up that sort of experience for its players. Moving on to one of the big hitters though, the Horizon series as of April 2023 has sold 32.7 million units. Now this does have a bit of a caveat here because this figure does include PS Plus downloads and the Play at Home downloads. Now Play at Home was an initiative during COVID where they released Zero Dawn for free. So that's included in this lineup, as is any download from PS Plus. Put together though with those two games, obviously we've got Call of the Mountain. We don't really know how well that one sold, but it isn't going to be anywhere near the level of the console exclusives, considering it's a VR exclusive. Zero Dawn has over 20 million sales with over 1 billion hours played as of February in 2022, and that's across both PS4 and PC. This game has been a phenomenal hit for a new IP from the Killzone developer, especially after the launch of Killzone Shadowfall. We never really heard anything beyond the 2 million that it sold in its sort of 3-month launch window, but now we have a game that in, how many years has it been since Zero Dawn? About 6 years or something like that. we have a game that has sold over 20 million units. Rumours around that there's going to be a remake as well, so that can only boost. We've had 8.4 million sales as of May in 2023, roughly a year after Forbidden West came out. That's across PS4 and 5, and just in the last few months we've had a PC launch as well, so we can imagine that will grow a little further. But yeah, this is a big hit for PlayStation. Again, similar to what I'm saying about Ghost of Tsushima, there's a TV show in the works for Horizon at Netflix, I believe. So there's every possibility that we have something that's just going to continue to grow. But over 30 million sales for a series that essentially only has 2 big mainline hits, that's impressive. So on to a bit of a main staple of the series, and one of the few that is going to, in this list, that's going to carry over from the PS3 era. We have The Last of Us, which as of December in 2022, the series had sold 37 million units. A little bit higher than Horizon, but surprisingly not as high as you would expect. That really shows the power of Horizon there, I think. But The Last of Us and The Last of Us Remastered, which launched in 2013 on PS3 and then 2014 on PS4, as of October 2019, sold a combined total of 20 million units. That's between the two of them there. So The Last of Us 1 has 20 million units sold there. We have The Last of Us Part 2 coming in with 10 million units sold as of June 2022 on PS4. There isn't much of any data here regarding The Last of Us Remake, which came out just before this 37 million stat was rounded up. We've also had the Part 2 remaster launch on PS5. So this is another one that's seen a huge surge as well from the TV show. That 37 million number was just before the TV show started. So I can imagine that this one will be well past 40 million at this point, potentially on its way to 45 million. But yeah, it's incredibly impressive that this now over 10-year-old franchise is just seemingly at its apex at the moment, and I love to see it because it's one of my favourite franchises of all time. Bumping up a little bit, we have another Naughty Dog series with Uncharted, which as of 2017, so this is quite old, has 41 million sales. So Uncharted 4 accounted for about 16 million of those sales as of 2019. It also had 37 million players as of May 2021, although that's going to include PS Plus, it's going to include pre-owned copies. That's not necessarily 37 million sales there. And these figures don't include the Legacy of Thieves collection, which also launched on PC. So again, this is another one I think could be creeping its way up, probably 45 million or so. I don't know if it's quite got the power to go all the way up to 50 million just yet. The Uncharted movie, of course, came out. It probably would have seen a little bit of a boost, but it never quite hit in the way that The Last of Us or Fallout did. Didn't have that same butterfly effect, I suppose. And of course, it's been a while since we've had another Uncharted game. The Lost Legacy in roughly 2017 was the last we saw from this franchise, with Uncharted 4 coming out in 2016. So it's been a while. It's a sort of fading IP by comparison to The Last of Us. There's rumours that it's going to come back at some point. I'm not quite sure on that right now, but yeah, 41 million sales as of 7 years ago. It's going to be creeping up since then. Next up, we've got probably one of the most recent, like up-to-date sales figures out of the bunch here, and that's the Spider-Man series, which has sold 50 million units as of February 2024. Again, like Horizon, you really have to accept the fact that this is across 3 games. We've got Spider-Man, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Spider-Man 2. 50 million sales across that is really, really impressive. Of course, we've also had the PS5 remaster of Spider-Man 1. We've also had the PC launch of Miles Morales and Spider-Man, so there's going to be a bit of an influx there from other platforms. Spider-Man 2 though, at the time one of the fastest selling PlayStation launch windows, had 10 million as of February, so that's roughly a 6-month window, with 2.5 million of those sales coming within the first 24 hours, which is, I mean, that shows the power of a series like Spider-Man, with Spider-Man 2 just felt like such a blockbuster hit. Just for a little bit of history as well, the series had sold 33 million units as of May 2022, so it went up 17 million as, within less than 2 years. Spider-Man on PS4 also sold 9 million units within its first 3 months. So I mean, from the very beginning, Insomniac Games had a big hit on its hands, and that, I mean, 50 million, that's super impressive for what is ultimately a pretty new franchise. The first game came out in 2018, so 6 years and you've got 50 million. Spider-Man's a hit and it's staying with PlayStation. So next up, we've got the God of War franchise, which has roughly 70 million units sold. Obviously, this one has a bit of a storied past, launching in PS2 with the 2005 original. There's a lot of different games in this series, from like little spin-off ones to Vita collections and PS4 remasters, so that's all sort of included here. We don't have concrete data on a lot of that stuff, but what we do have concrete data on is the latest installments since the 2018 reboot. Now, God of War 2018 sold 23 million units as of October 2022, which was just before the launch of Ragnarok. This would have been including the PS4 and the PC release. So that, I mean, again though, that's a pretty big hit, especially by comparison to some of the older entries in the series, which were likely more around the 4 to 5 million mark as far as I could see online. Ragnarok though is shaping up to be just as big a hit as the 2018 reboot, with 15 million units sold as of October 2023. That's about within 1 year, and that's across PS4 and 5. Rumour has it there's going to be a PC release pretty soon, so that will bump up even more. And again, there's another one with a TV show coming down the line on Amazon Prime, I believe. So yeah, the future's looking bright for this. It's kind of crazy to think though that of the 70 million across 20 years, 30 to 40 million of that has come from just the last two entries. It really shows how much the course correction, I suppose, or the change in direction that we had with the reboot, how well that's done for the franchise. But obviously it's not really quite fair to just say those games are better and that's why it's sold. Gaming's a far bigger commodity than it was back then. It's become one of the biggest, if not the biggest industry in the world, definitely bigger than the movie industry. So there's a lot of other factors in play here, but obviously word of mouth would have really helped with these games. These are really excellent games, I believe. Both of these games get 10 out of 10s from us here at Push Square, but yeah, pretty impressive there. Before we get on to the last one, I do want to cover some additional mentions, just games that maybe didn't have like the highest selling, but they've done alright, or maybe a little underwhelming. So anyway, I've got a couple here. Demon's Souls remake with 1.4 million as of September 21. That's roughly a year after, a little less than a year actually, after it came out on the PS5. I think for the sort of niche PS3 remake, I know From Software games are super popular now. I don't know, I think that's still pretty impressive for a game like that. It was a great remake, it looked fantastic. Another one here is Returnal, which just after 2-3 months after its launch had only sold 560,000 units. This one does kind of hurt as a big Returnal fan. We know it did launch on PC, but it there wasn't a great reception there either, partly due to marketing, partly due to the fact that Returnal is a bit of an esoteric game. It's not quite like the mainstream. It's quite a tough game. The story, you have to dig into it if you really want to understand things, so it's not really for everyone, which I get, but seeing 560,000 after that amount of time, you have to assume that in the years since it's probably looking over 1 million at this point, maybe a little more. But yeah, as what I think is probably the best PS5 exclusive we've had this generation. A little sad to see that not everyone else thinks that. Lastly, a sort of controversial one, we have Days Gone, which according to the game director Jeff Ross, he said that roughly in the beginning of 2022, once he left the company, it had sold roughly 8 million units. Now, there is a big conversation around the idea of like, this game was a flop, it's not getting its sequel, or actually done alright and it's a little bit underrated. There's a lot of conversation to be had there regarding all of that stuff, but generally speaking, I think when you consider the cost of an open world game like that, if it's not got the legs to continue to grow, if it's not doing like the big numbers, then maybe it's not the way forward. Obviously, you could argue that the Ghost of Tsushima really have that big an impact to warrant it to continue with 9.73 million. But I think Ghost of Tsushima has like a broader appeal, and it has, as we've seen with movie announcements, it's got the legs to grow beyond that. I don't know if Days Gone necessarily had that when The Last of Us was there as well. Maybe just a bit of an unfortunate case. I actually don't hate the game. From what I've played, I've kind of enjoyed it. Moving on to the top franchise, the biggest selling series in PlayStation history, and that's actually the Gran Turismo series, which as of December 2022 had sold 90 million units. Of course though, that is across 14 games, 17 mainline entries, and this started all the way back in 1997. So as of 2016, we know that games like GT6 had sold 5 million, and the series was at 76.8 million. December 2022 was just roughly like 2/3 of a year after Gran Turismo 7 came out. According to Matt Piscatella, the executive director of this stat site called Circana, GT7 is the second best selling game in the series behind only GT3 A-Spec, but it's likely to catch up at some point this year in 2024. I think this game, GT7, really has the legs to continue to perform over the years. It was very well received. We had the PSVR 2 update as well, which by all accounts is one of the most like extensive VR racing experiences you can get out there. You could argue that, yeah, this is across so many entries and so many years. We're getting, we're on our way to 30 years of Gran Turismo, but this is a pretty big and important franchise for PlayStation, and I don't think you would necessarily think it's the one that's up there. Considering it's just like it's a simulation racing series. It's not really flashy. It's not very like explosive or that exciting. I personally don't really gel with the simulation style of racing experiences like it. But yeah, 19 million unit sales as of 2022, and you can only imagine that would be on its way to 95, maybe even creeping up to 100 million at this point, who's to say. But yeah, those are some of the best selling franchises in PlayStation's history. Like I was saying, if you want me to dig into some of the older games, looking back to PS3, PS2, it's kind of tough to find like official information out there, but I'll dig it up if that's the kind of video you would like to see. Anyway, please do let me know what you're thinking of these stats down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, that does help us out, and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more PlayStation video content just like this. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching, and until next time, I've been Aaron, and this has been Push Square.